Hi everyone, today we're going to be solving AQA GCSE Biology Higher Tier Paper 2H, June 2018 paper. Many human actions are reflexes. Which of the following are example of reflex action? A reflex is an unconscious action, is an action that does not involve the conscious part of the brain, so we will say automatic. Jumping in the air to catch a ball. This one requires active decision. Raising a hand to protect the eyes in bright light. This one also requires an active decision. So, protecting the eyes in the bright light can decrease the size of the pupil. That would be automatic. Releasing saliva when food enters the mouth. This one we do not have any control of this particular as a release of saliva. We cannot decide to release saliva. So this one is reflex action. Running away from danger. Since running away from danger, some people may choose to fight it. So that is a conscious decision. Withdrawing the hand from a sharp object. Withdrawing the hand from a sharp object would be an unconscious decision. So this one would be a reflex. Figure 1 shows how the size of the pupil of the human eye can change by reflex action. We can see the size of the pupil was larger, then it decreased. Name one stimulus that would cause the pupil to change in size from A to B, shown in figure 1. So in figure A, we can see that the pupil is large. That means this is dim light or dark, whereas B must be bright light. So to go from A to B, bright light must be acting as a stimulus. The structure Q causes the change in size of the pupil. Name the structure Q. So looking back into the diagram, we can see Q is the iris. Describe how structure Q causes the change in the size of the pupil from A to B. Iris consists of muscles, so the muscles contract. Iris consists of circular muscle, and along with it there are radial muscle. Since muscle can only contract, they are antagonistic pair. So the circular muscle contraction makes pupil smaller, whereas the radial muscle contraction makes pupil larger. Figure 2 shows some structures involved in the coordination of a reflex action. We can see the receptor, neuron A carrying the signal, which is a sensory neuron, going to synapse, through synapse, and then neuron B, which is the relay neuron, and then going through synapse back again into the neuron C, which is the motor neuron, to an effector, which can be either a muscle or gland. Describe how the structure shown in figure 2 help to coordinate a reflex action. We'll have to give a level 2 answer, meaning it has to be scientifically relevant fact, events, or processes, and then we must give a detailed account for it. So the answer can be written in this way. The receptor detects a stimulus, example, pressure, and the receptor then generates electrical impulses or electrical signals. Those electrical signals are then conducted by the sensory neuron, and then it crosses the synapse between the sensory neuron and the motor neuron and the relay neuron by neurotransmitter. The chemical then stimulates impulses in neuron B, which is the relay neuron, and then the same happens from the relay neuron to motor neuron, and the motor neuron carries the information to the effector, which is the muscle of the arm or a leg, which contracts. Or it can carry the information, a motor neuron can carry the information to a gland, which secretes chemicals. Many scientists think the global air temperature is related to the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Figure 3 shows the changes in global air temperature and changes in concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. We can see there is a general rise in carbon dioxide concentration with a decrease in global air temperature, then increase in global air temperature, then it plateaus. Using information from figure 3 and choose the answers from the box. Trend in carbon dioxide concentration from 1960s to 1977 is already given. It's increasing. From 1977 to 2003, it's still increasing. And from 2003 to 2015, it's still increasing. Now, trend in air temperature, we can see up until 1977, it actually decreases, then increases, and then plateaus. Many scientists think an increase in carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere causes an increase in air temperature. How would an increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere cause an increase in air temperature? Carbon dioxide can trap infrared radiation, or we can say CO2 insulates, prevents loss of heat. Evaluate the evidence for and against theory that an increase in concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere causes an increase in air temperature. We can use data from figure 3 and our own knowledge. Okay. So looking from the graph, we can say there is a increase in carbon dioxide concentration, which in general has increased the global air temperature on average. So the answer can be written in this way. For the theory, we can say an overall increase in CO2 parallels the overall increased temperature, and for the reason we can say CO2 traps infrared radiation. In terms of against the theory, we can say in some years temperature falls even though the CO2 concentrations are rising. Overall, correlation does not necessarily mean a causal link. So we can say other unknown factors may be involved in temperature change. In each year, the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is higher in the winter than in the summer. Give one human activity that could cause the higher concentration of carbon dioxide in the winter. In the winter, burning of fossil fuel is necessary for heating homes. So we can say burning of fossil fuels. Give one biological process that could cause the lower concentration of carbon dioxide in the summer. In the summer, the temperature is higher, so the rate of photosynthesis increases. We'll say photosynthesis. Give two possible effects of an increase in global air temperature on living organisms. So, since global air temperature is rising, some plants will find it in their convenience, because higher temperature means they will be able to grow faster. Whereas some animals may lose their habitat because they will be those places may turn into desert. So animal migration may occur, and extinction of some animals may also occur. So all of these points are valid. Just write 2 points to get your mark. It is important to maintain water balance in the body. Figure 4 shows how much water a person gained and lost by different methods in one day. So water gained by the body, we can see here 500, 1500 and 400. Whereas water lost in urine is 1500, skin 400 and breathing is 380. When water is balanced, the volume of water taken in the body is equal to the volume of water lost from the body. Calculate the volume of water the person lost in one day in feces. So we found out the water consumed by the person, which was 500, 1500 and 400. So the total was 2400, and the water lost in various processes was added up to 2280. So water that is lost in feces must be 2400 minus 2280, which gives us 120 cm cube. Figure 4 shows that one method of gaining water is by metabolism. Which metabolic process produces water? Metabolic process that produce water would be respiration of glucose. Respiration of glucose produces carbon dioxide plus water. So this water is metabolic water. Breakdown of protein into amino acid is a process of hydrolysis. So hydrolysis process requires water. Glycogen into glucose is also hydrolysis. Digestion of fat to produce fatty acids and glycerol will also involve hydrolysis. So all of these other processes requires water, whereas only the process of respiration produces water. The next day, the person ran a 10-kilometer race. The volume of water lost from the body through the skin and by breathing increased. Explain why more water was lost through the skin during the race. So when the person ran 10 kilometers, the muscle contraction increased body heat. Body temperature increased. In order to lose those extra heat, the body needs to do more sweating because exercise releases heat. Explain why more water was lost by breathing during the race. So, during the race, the person's muscles are contracting more rapidly. So, the muscle needs more oxygen in order to do aerobic respiration. That means the person has to breathe at a much higher rate So the answer can be written in this way. During exercise or during the race, more energy is needed, so more aerobic respiration needs to be carried out. As a result, to supply the enough amount of oxygen needed for the aerobic respiration, the breathing rate needs to increase, which then basically is responsible for more water lost by the breathing process by evaporation. Some students investigated the size of a population of dandelion plants in a field. Figure 5 shows the field. So the area is 150 meter by 300 meter and then has a small side with 100 meter by 100 meter. The student placed a 1 meter by 1 meter square quadrant at 10 random positions in the field. Counted the number of dandelion plants in each quadrant. So 10 quadrants, dandelion plants in each quadrant, she counted. Okay. Why did the student place the quadrants at random position? To avoid any kind of bias, random position can be used. Or we can say, so that there is an uneven distribution, because there is an uneven distribution of dandelions, and this will ensure that the data is more representative to get a more accurate average or mean. Estimate the total number of dandelion plants in the field. Calculate your answer using information from figure 5 and table 2. Give your answer in standard form. Mean number of dandelion per meter square. To get this data, we will add all of the numbers in here and then divide it by 10. 60 divided by 10, this gives us 6 dandelion per meter square. Now we will need to calculate the area of the field. To do this, we have to divide the area into two different portions. One portion measuring 150 times 300, while the other portion will be 100 times 100. So this will be the area. Now the total area then comes out 55,000 meter square. Since there are 6 dandelions per meter square, so we will say total number of dandelions 55,000 times 6, which gives us 330,000 dandelions. Now the answer must be given in standard form. So the answer can be written 3.30 times 10 to the power of 5. So 3.30 times 10 to the power of 5 will be the correct answer. Quadrants 5, 7, 8 were each placed less than 10 meters from the woodland. These quadrants contain low number of dandelion plants. The student made the hypothesis. Light intensity affects the number of dandelions plants that grow in an area. Now we have to plan an investigation to test the hypothesis. This particular question is of 6 marks, so we will have to make a level 3 response. So one of the important thing over here would be a production of a valid outcome. And other important thing would be the key steps are identified and has to be logically sequenced. We would receive marks for the following points: placing of the quadrant and the number of quadrants that are used. And since we want to have this particular process in a random manner, so we would have to have as many quadrants placed as possible, all right, and using a random number generating app. Since we have light intensities as a factor, so we would have to place the quadrants in an area of dark and in an area of light. Then we will count the number of dandelions within each quadrant and also measure the light density in those quadrants. Then we will compare the data for different light intensities and the number of dandelions. So the answer can be written in this way. Identify two areas, one light and the other dark. At each area, divide the area into coordinates. Use a random number generator function on your calculator to generate 20 coordinates for each place. At each of these places, a 1 meter square quadrant is placed and the number of dandelions are counted. Also, measure the light intensity at each quadrant. Record this and compare the data at different intensities. Light is an environmental factor that affects the growth of dandelion plants. Give two other environmental factors that affect the growth of dandelion plants. The thought process for this particular answer will be: growth requires photosynthesis that needs correct temperature, ions, mineral ions, and water or soil, which is also very important. So the answer will be water and temperature. Cell division is needed for growth and for reproduction. Table 3 contains 3 statements about cell division. We have to complete table 3. So here we have the options mitosis only. In mitosis, it produces 2 genetically identical daughter cells. And in meiosis, it produces 4 genetically different cells. The other things that we need to understand is that mitosis produces diploid cells and meiosis produces haploid cells. All cells produced are genetically identical. So in mitosis, it is correct. In meiosis, it's not correct. And this term is not applicable for both meiosis and mitosis. You just have to tick in the correct boxes. In humans, at the end of cell division, each cell contains 23 chromosomes. At the end of cell division, because it produces haploid cells, in meiosis only, we will have 23 chromosomes. Involves DNA replication. Both mitosis and meiosis involves DNA replication. Normal body cells are somatic cells. They have 46 chromosomes in each of the cells. However, when gametes are formed from meiosis, the numbers have to 23. So 46, which is diploid, and 23 is called haploid. Bluebell plants grow in woodlands in the UK. Bluebell can reproduce sexually by producing seeds. Bluebell can also reproduce asexually by making new bulbs. One advantage of asexual reproduction for bluebell is that one parent is needed. Suggest 2 other advantages of asexual reproduction for bluebells. Asexual reproduction, in general, has these following points. Since asexual reproduction is very fast, it takes less amount of time and it is more energy efficient since no partner needs to be, mate with, or no partner needs to be found to mate with. All right. So it can produce, the other points that we can also write is that it can produce many offspring. It can produce genetically identical offspring. So good traits can be carried on into the next generation, or successful traits propagated and maintained and passed on to offspring because they are genetically identical. There is no need for the transfer of gametes or seed dispersal, which is wasteful of energy. And then there is no wasteful flowers or pollens or seeds needed. Colonization of the local area is much easier. Explain why sexual reproduction is an advantage for bluebells. So sexual reproduction uses meiosis to produce gametes. And this introduces variation within the population. So some individuals are better adapted to survive. So the answer can be written in this way. Sexual reproduction results in genetic variation in offspring. So some individuals will be better adapted to survive, and the seeds may disperse long distances, allowing colonization of new areas. Also, many offspring will be produced, so higher probability that some will survive because some of them will have some advantageous characteristics. Some students investigated geotropism in the roots of bean seedlings. Figure 6 shows the apparatus that is used. We can see a cork mat where there is a damp blotting paper and the apparatus A is stationary. Alright, the seedlings, they have a pin through them to make them stable. Alright, and in apparatus B is rotating slowly. Alright, the bean seedlings, they are also present there with a pin to make them stable, and then they're rotating. So the method that is used, measure the length of the root of each of the 10 bean seedlings, pin 5 seedlings to the cork mat in apparatus A, pin 5 seedlings to the cork mat in apparatus B. Leave A and B in the dark cupboard for 2 days. After 2 days, make a drawing to show the appearance of each seedling. Measure the length of the root of each seedling. Why did the student surround the seedlings with damp blotting paper? Let's see the options. To prevent light affecting the direction of the root growth. It is kept in a dark box, so definitely light is not going to interrupt the root growth anyway. To prevent photosynthesis taking place in the roots, since we are placing it in a dark cupboard, so these 2 points are not correct. To prevent growth of mold on the roots, to prevent water affecting the direction of root growth. So mold growth is not prevented just by using a blotting paper. The main purpose of blotting paper is effect of water, not light. So, to prevent water affecting the direction of the root growth, this will be the correct answer. Apparatus B is a control. Apparatus B rotates slowly. How does apparatus B act as a control? Since the apparatus B is rotating in all directions, it is rotating in a circular direction, gravity acts evenly on all sides. The circular motion cancels out the gravity. Seedling number in apparatus A, length at the start in millimeters, and then length after 2 days in millimeters is 49, change in length 14, that means it has grown, and mean length change in millimeter is 14 from all of the changes that are taking place here. The average of it is 14. In apparatus B, we can see the change in length in millimeter is 15, 12, 15, 1 and 13, and the average comes 11. One student stated the mean length change for seedling in apparatus B is not valid. Suggest the reason for the student's statement. Because there is one extreme point which is anomalous. So the anomalous has been included in the average, in the mean. If we exclude this one, then the average will be 13.75. So we will write the anomaly of the seedling 4 has been included. Suggest one improvement that the student could make to obtain a more valid average length change for the seedlings in apparatus B. So the student can recalculate the mean with seedlings 1, 2, 3 and 5, or repeat the experiment and calculate a new mean. So the student should repeat the experiment for the experiment the student can repeat the whole experiment and then calculate an average again. So either recalculate or repeat experiment and then calculate new average. Figure 7 shows the student's drawing of two seedlings at the end of 2 days. We can see seedling from apparatus A, the growth has gone downwards. So we'll say curves downwards. In seedlings from apparatus B, we can see the root keeps on growing straight. A plant hormone is made in the root tip. So in the root tip, auxin is produced in both of the cases. However, auxin accumulates at the base of the seedling in apparatus A, whereas auxin is evenly distributed in the seedling of apparatus B. The hormone diffuses from the root tip into the tissues of the root. Explain how hormone causes the appearance of seedlings in figure 7 to be different. You should refer to both seedlings in your answer. So auxin's behavior in the root, basically it prevents cell elongation. This is auxin accumulating at the base of A. So the answer can be written as follows. There is more auxin at the bottom of the root in A, but even distribution occurs throughout the root in B. Therefore, there is reduced cell elongation at the bottom of the cells of the root in A, causing the root to bend. Or we can say the top grows faster than the bottom. In horticulture, plant hormones are used for controlling plant growth. Draw one line from each plant hormone to the correct use of plant hormone. So, first of all, we can see auxin. Auxin, let's see the options. To reduce the time taken for tomatoes to ripen, to slow down the growth of plant stems, to promote seed germination, to stimulate root growth in plant cuttings. Auxin can stimulate root growth in plant cuttings. Guys, just a note point. Excessive auxin prevents root growth, prevents cell elongation. However, moderate auxin will allow cells to grow faster, cells to increase in size faster. Talking about ethene. Ethene is produced by bananas. That's why they make fruit around them ripen faster. So for ethene, it will reduce the time taken for the tomatoes to ripen. Finally, gibberellin. The main function of gibberellin is to promote seed germination. Figure 8 shows a food chain for organism in a river. The biomass of the organism at each trophic level is mentioned. We can see the biomass of algae given at 840 gram per meter square, invertebrate animals 200, small fish 40 and large fish 10. So, the algae are the producer, the invertebrate animals are the primary consumer, the small fish are the secondary consumer, and the large fish is the tertiary consumer. Draw a pyramid of biomass for the food chain in figure 8 on figure 9. We have to use a suitable scale, label the x-axis, and label each trophic level. We can see our maximum is 840. So by keeping that in mind, the 840 has to be covered by considering both of the sides. So our labeling in the x-axis should be biomass in gram per meter square. Now we have to take a suitable scale. So for example, if this is 100, then 200, 400, this final one will be 450. In the same way, we also have the same in the other side. Now, since we have 4 trophic levels, so we can choose a height of 2 box. Okay, by considering this, now let's do with the each of the biomass. So the biomass of the algae is 840. So 840 will be 420 in each direction. And then the next for the biomass for the invertebrate animals is 200. It will be 100 in both direction. The next biomass is 40. It will be 20 in both direction. The last one is 10. So it will be 5 in both direction. So the way I did it was for the algae, it was 840. So I divided it by 2 and then I had 420 for both directions. For invertebrate animals, I had 200. So I divided by 2 and I had 100 in each of the directions. And then for small fish, I had 40. So I divided by 2 and then I had 20 in each of the directions. And large fish was 10. So I divided by 2, which is gave me 5. So which is half of a box. Now we will have to label it. Algae, invertebrate animals, then we have small fish, and finally large fish. If we label it correctly and there is correct width, then we will get the full marks. Calculate the percentage of biomass lost between algae and the large fish. So algae has a biomass of 840, whereas large fish has a biomass of 10. So from 840, only 10 remains. So we'll subtract it and divide it by 840 times 100. This gives us 98.80952. Now we have to give our answer to two significant figure. So we will say this is equivalent to 99%. Percentage loss, 99%. Give one way that the biomass is lost between the trophic levels. Biomass between the trophic levels can be through respiration and through excretion. So the most important one is respiration, or we can say inedible parts, which means that some part of the animals are not eaten by the animal which is immediately above its trophic level, or we can say that biomass is ingested in feces. A large amount of untreated sewage entered the river. Many fish died. Untreated sewage contains organic matter and bacteria. Explain why many fish died. So the answer for this one, because untreated sewage, what does it contain? It contains organic matters. And when organic matters are decomposed, they release, they will be decomposed using bacteria, those that are doing respiration aerobically, and thereby they will deplete all the oxygen, which will kill the bacteria, which will kill the fish because the fish cannot get enough oxygen. So the answer can be written like this. Bacteria decay organic matter by digestion. They respire aerobically, which lowers the oxygen concentration of the river water. The fish have less oxygen, hence they will have a reduced energy supply, so they die. Scientists want to breed cows that produce milk with a low concentration of fat. Figure 10 shows information about the milk in one group of cows. The cows were all the same type. We can see percentage fat in their milk can go as high as 4.8 and as low as 2.7. In figure 10, the mean percentage of fat in milk is equal to modal value. Give the mean percentage fat in the milk of this cow. So modal value occurs when we have a most frequent value. So the highest bar. So the highest bar in this case is 3.7. Since our mode is equals to mean, so mean percentage will be 3.7. A student suggested that the percentage of fat in milk is controlled by one dominant allele and one recessive allele. How many different phenotypes would this produce? So a dominant allele, capital A, and a recessive allele is small a. This can produce capital A and small a and small a. So it can produce only two types of phenotype. One, because dominant A, if present, will be expressed. So it can produce only two types of phenotype because both of this produces phenotype 1, let's say phenotype A, and this one produces phenotype small a. Give the evidence from figure 10, which shows the percentage of fat in the milk is controlled by several genes. When a factor is controlled by several genes, it has a large range of phenotypes. A typical example is height in humans. So the answer will be large range of values, or we can say only two values or in between values. All right. So it doesn't have only two values, or there are in between values of the range starting from 2.4 and 4.8. One of the genes code for an enzyme used in fat metabolism. A mutation in this gene causes a reduction in milk fat. The mutation changes one amino acid in the enzyme molecule. Explain how a change in one amino acid in an enzyme molecule would stop the enzyme from working. So, a typical enzyme works by using an active site, and a substrate comes and basically fits into the active site. When there is a mutation, the enzyme's active site changes. That means that fat molecule, the substrate molecule, can no longer fit into it. You can say this active site is no longer complementary. So, when we are talking about the enzyme is used in fat metabolism, we are basically talking about fat production. So, a change in amino acid, a different protein is produced with a altered active site. The substrate does not bind, so no enzyme substrate complexes are formed. The scientists found one cow with a mutation. The cow's milk contained only 2.9% fat. Figure 11 shows the percentage of fat in the milk of cattle related to the cow with the mutation. The values for male cattle are the mean values of their female offspring. So we can see with 4.7 and 2.8, 4.0. One of the reasons why we are using the mean values of their female offspring, it's because milk production is a sex-limited trait. Milk of cattle is a sex-limited trait. We can see that there is a cow with a mutation with 2.9 and 4.2, which produces a varying range of milk fat production. Okay, female cow with low fat with the mutation, male cow whose female offspring have low fat with the mutation, and then female cow with high fat milk, male those whose female offspring have high fat milk. So we can see with the mutation, the fat production is lower. Animal 8 is homozygous. Animal 8 is homozygous. The mutation in animal 7 produced a dominant allele for making low-fat milk. Give evidence from figure 11 that animal 7 is heterozygous. We can see that the above animals, they have high fat. And then going forward, some of them have a high fat while others have low. So if this particular cow with mutation was dominant homozygous, and this organism, since it is already given by the information, is recessive homozygous, the resulting offspring would all have the mutation. So this organism must be heterozygous because only few of the offspring have mutations. So they are all heterozygous, whereas being homozygous means high milk fat production. So we will say the reason is animal 7 produces some offspring with high fat milk. Animal 7 and 8 produced 11 offspring. These offsprings were produced by in vitro fertilization. Embryos from IVF were transferred into 11 other cows. Suggest why IVF and embryo transfer were used rather than allowing animals 7 and 8 to mate naturally. Mating naturally produces one calf per mating per season. Using IVF allows us more offspring to be produced at the same time. Draw a Punnett square diagram to show the cross between animal 7 and 8. Identify which offspring produce low-fat milk, which offspring produces high-fat milk. So the identity of the 7 is a heterozygous female, and the identity of animal 8 is a homozygous recessive male. So for the male, in the Punnett square, we can write like this, small d and small d. And for the female, we can write capital D and small d. This produces offspring with capital D and small d, 2 capital D and small d, and 2 small d small d. So the ones that have capital D have low fat, and the ones that have small d, they have high fat. The scientists want to produce a type of cattle that makes large volumes of low-fat milk. The scientist will selectively breed some of the animals shown in figure 11. Describe how the scientist would do this. In order to do a selective breeding on an animal to produce low-fat milk, the scientist would find the female with the highest yield of milk and lowest fat production. And since milk production is a sex-limited trait, the scientist will also take a male whose offspring have, highest milk yield but low fat production, so have the same characteristics. Then the scientist will cross these two individuals and select the offspring that has the characteristics, for high milk yield and lowest fat. And then the scientist will repeat the process for several generations and until low fat milk and high milk yield production, high milk yield becomes the common trait. Figure 12 shows a ring-tailed lemur. Table 5 shows part of the classification of the ring-tailed lemur. We can see the kingdom and the phylum and the genus has been done for us. Complete Table 5 give the names of the missing classification groups. So for this one, we can remember a particular mnemonics. The mnemonics will be King Philip comes over for good spaghetti. So King is kingdom and Philip is phylum. So comes, we can say that this is class. Over is going to stand for order. For family, good for genus, and spaghetti for species. Or the binomial name of the ring-tailed lemur using information from table 5. Binomial name is the two-part name. So the lemur is lemur cacta. Lemurs are only found in the islands of Madagascar. Madagascar is off the coast of Africa. Scientists think the ancestors of modern lemurs evolved in Africa and reached Madagascar about 50 to 60 million years ago. Today, there are many species of lemur living in Madagascar. Figure 13 shows information about water currents. Figure 14 shows the distribution of 3 species of lemur on Madagascar. So we can see figure 13, the lemurs are distributed in all of these regions and they are not isolated, whereas species. So we can see Madagascar is an island which is located off the coast of Africa. Now in the Madagascar island, there is species P and species Q. And then there is a ring-tailed lemur. Suggest how ancestors of modern lemur reached Madagascar. We can see the water currents 50 to 60 million years ago. So they might have come from Africa. So the answer, because they say suggestion, the answer can be the lemurs might be carried by favorable currents on masses of vegetation after a storm. Describe how the ancestors of modern lemurs may have evolved into species shown in figure 14. Whenever we are talking about evolved into a species, we are talking about speciation. And since this is happening on an island, so there must be geographical isolation. So the answer can be written in this way. Different populations become isolated from one another. There was variation between the habitats of the different population of lemurs, and there was substantial genetic variation within the lemur population. These individuals that are better adapted to survive to reproduce in their new environment, they pass on their favorable alleles to the offspring, and eventually individuals of one population cannot produce fertile offspring with another anymore. They are now separate species. That's the end of this particular question paper. Thank you for watching this particular video. Guys, question paper like this will be uploaded almost every day. So guys, subscribe to the channel and allow the channel to grow. And best of luck for your exams. Thank you. Bye-bye.